realized that the ingredients were important for our skin, but also the environment. So that was a big thing for me, where I realized like I don't want to be washing toxins down the drain. I definitely don't want them on my skin.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Vegan View. So today we have Remy Morimoto on. She's a vegan, gluten-free recipe creator with a focus on non-toxic living. Please welcome Remy. Yay! So happy to have you on.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. I love that we get to do this because I don't live in LA, so this is like the next best thing.
Totally. So great. Yeah, so you're in New York City, and we were saying before we started filming, we were supposed to be in New York last week, so we would have definitely got to see you in person and hang out. So at least we still get to see you in another form.
Yeah, I can't wait. I hope that'll be soon. We have a lot of vegan food. I mean, so do you guys, but we like a different vegan food. I feel like it's a little bit more junky, you know? Like LA vegan food to me is like a little bit more healthy.
Yeah. I don't know though. I feel like you guys have really good high-end restaurants that we have like a couple, but I would like to have more. Like you have Avant Garden, you have Lady Bird, like places that you would get dressed up cute and go on a date to, and we don't really have many of those. So
that's true. We have like fancy spots.
In New York, I lived there in 2014, 2015, and there were not that many vegan places. I remember there was like Candle 92, I think it was called. But there was like not any vegan places. I wasn't vegan then, but I remember it was kind of like right after I moved back that I went vegan, and all of a sudden New York became like the vegan food spot.
Yeah, that's so true.
Not that it hasn't been that long.
No, it hasn't. I think Candle closed down when
They did.
Ones, right? But I was like so sad because they're definitely an original. I live close to the one on the west side.
Yeah. I never went there, but I knew that was like, if someone was vegan, that's where they went.
Well, I never got to go either, and I'm sad because I feel like it's iconic.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some of our viewers already know you, but for those that don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little rundown on like who you are and how you became vegan and what led you to making videos?
Sure. So I've been vegan for about 6 years now, and I went vegan in college. At the time, I was actually working on eating disorder recovery, but it was something that I had kind of had a handle on already. So it wasn't something that I thought about doing during the process, but more so after. And even though I had kind of recovered already, I thought it was really interesting because it was the first time that I was really excited about food again. So for me, it was like this new exploration of a different kind of cooking. It was also a lot easier for me, I think, because there were there were labels, but not so much on like fresh produce. And I feel like that's a big part of eating vegan. It's not like this much rice in a box with like labels on it. So a lot of things about it were just really easy for me to naturally feel more comfortable with food again. And yeah, it was the first time that I really like wanted to cook. I wanted to learn how to make a vegan cheese, like a mac and cheese and stuff. And from there, I started an Instagram account, and that was actually my food log with my nutritionist at the time for like recovery and accountability. And then everybody on my Facebook found it. So I was like, well, I don't want to delete my account, so I'm just going to make the name something a little bit more normal and maybe not share as much and just make the food photos look a little bit better. And a couple of friends were curious about, what is veganism? Like, how can you have a mac and cheese with no cheese? And it was really fun for me. So it was all kind of just a hobby. And then when I graduated college, I had a job for about 3 months. I ended up quitting just to actually go back to recovery, and the blog kind of took off from there. So I've been doing it full time now for about 3 years, and it's just so fun to do something that you're really passionate about. And I feel like it's one of those things that doesn't feel like work because you really enjoy it. So that's been that. YouTube was actually way harder for me, I think, than most other platforms, just because I'm not that I'm not energetic, but I'm not really outgoing. And I feel like that's a big thing on YouTube. Like all the people at the time that were on YouTube were super like outgoing, enthusiastic, a little bit over the top, So I was like, I don't know if this is really for me, but I thought of it as kind of like a personal challenge and also just way more fun, and there's just more room to like express and share, whether it's like a vegan recipe or just your thoughts. So yeah, I still do that for fun, but I always say like I'm definitely a noob in the YouTube space. Like I just kind of put things out there and see what happens.
Your videos are so fun to watch.
So you don't seem like a noob at all.
Yeah, it's funny that you think you're not like outgoing and like, because I totally know what you mean. It's that loud, hey, what's up, you guys? Yes.
Exactly.
But your videos are just as compelling without being like that, and they're just as fun and colorful and entertaining. So it's funny that I think that people think of that as a YouTuber, and it's just anyone can be a YouTuber. And yeah, you're not a noob. You got it going on, girl. I know you're really passionate about non-toxic beauty products and home products, and I'd love to learn more about like how you became so passionate about it and what kind of things you look for in the products you use, and yeah, all about that.
So I actually became, I think, aware of just materials and ingredients and products probably because I went vegan. It was the first time I actually read ingredient labels. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I never paid attention to what was in the food that I was eating. So all of a sudden I was like very careful about just making sure that there wasn't like beeswax or honey in skincare products. And then I realized that there were all these other ingredients that I didn't really understand what they were. So after I did my own research, I found a lot of articles that a lot of them were actually not that great for your skin. I actually had pretty bad skin. I mean, it's still something that is challenging for me. So I was like, okay, I need to learn what these ingredients are and figure out what's good for my skin, what all these things are. And slowly as I became, I guess like a more educated vegan, I realized that the ingredients were important for our skin, but also the environment. So that was a big thing for me where I realized like, I don't want to be washing toxins down the drain. I definitely don't want them on my skin. And same for like home products, which was actually scary to think about because I never realized like what could be in mattresses. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sleeping on this every day. So for a while, I went a little crazy. I was like, this is really scary. Like all of a sudden I feel the need to replace everything. But now I feel like I just have a lot more information about like what's in everything and I know what to look out for. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I got started in it. And I realized later on too, that it's so important for just long-term health. My mom, she has lupus. And I think that a lot of our family members have autoimmune symptoms. And I realized the connection between all of those things. And I was like, okay, I really do need to be mindful not only about the food that I'm eating, but all the other things that I'm consuming because, you know, we absorb things through our skin, through like what's in the air even. So that was kind of how it got started. And now I would say it's actually really fun because a lot of the non-toxic brands are on the smaller side. I feel like it's still a fairly new space. So for me, it's kind of fun to be able to support smaller businesses and just, I don't know, get to know what they're doing and learn from them. Like I learned so much from people on the internet.
Totally. I love what you said about wanting, like, you start to learn about it and then you're like, oh my gosh, I need to change literally everything. And that can be really overwhelming for people. So what would you tell someone who is kind of in that stage where they're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to replace every single thing in my house. Like everything is toxic. What advice do you have for them and where can they start?
So I feel like the way that I did it, I would recommend to other people too, because I think it's the most financially smart way and also just, I guess from an ethical standpoint too, important because if you get rid of everything you own, it's still waste, and certain things that you already own, it's not going to be too bad if you just let it run its course and then when you're ready to replace it, you swap it out. So that's usually my recommendation, is to slowly start to replace things when you run out of it. And I feel like that's how a lot of people go vegan too. It's kind of like when you run out of your milk or you finally clean out the fridge, like then you start to incorporate new things. So I would say the same thing for like any makeup products, any skincare products, like even household items, or finding a way that maybe you could like donate them or get new products that are thrifted, because I think it can definitely be expensive if you like overhaul everything that you own. And I think that that's something people are really conscious of too.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Is there like one item in the home that, like, because you mentioned mattresses being something.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, right?
Like my mind.
I know. Is there one item maybe that's not mattresses that's like when you realize that that actually could be toxic, it really just totally blew your mind?
I think for me was frying pans. And I think, I mean, it's close enough to food where you can make that connection, but for some reason, like we never question what cooking materials are made of. And I recently switched out a couple of things, but in the beginning I was using things that, you know, looked nice or like claimed to be super non-toxic without really looking into it. There are a couple of brands I feel like that are coming up that are newer and they're also really cute, but definitely non-toxic. And I listened to, I think it was a podcast I listened to actually, where they interviewed the owner of this brand called Caraway Home, and he basically told the story of how he came to realize that it was toxic, and it was that he left a frying pan on the burner and kind of forgot about it without even like putting oil on it or food, and the smells that he was smelling, he's like, this cannot be good for us, you know, and like the fire department came and everything. But thinking about that is so crazy because we put our food right on it, you know. And I guess the same could be said about like hand washes or dishwashing detergent. Those are things that like we're using to clean, but they can be not dirty, but toxic, you know?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I literally never thought about my frying pans or my like cookware at all. And I recently got new cookware, and I texted NISHA because NISHA is like my go-to for all facts and information. And I was like, what are the things I need to look for? And she like gave me a list of like all the things I should look for like a non-toxic pan or pot. And so I upgraded, and now when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was using those old pans for so long, and I have no idea. They were definitely cheap. They definitely had all kinds of chemicals in them. And like, you know, when they start to get old and you can like see little pieces of it flaking off into your food, it was starting to get like that. And it's just like so terrifying that this is something that not a lot of people think about or know about. And like, yeah, everyone needs to double check their pans.
Yeah, it's really scary. And I would go through pans. I used to switch them out like every couple of years, and I kind of thought that was normal, but I feel like it can be expensive if you're replacing them. So maybe investing in like even just one that's like really large that you could use for everything is a really good move, because if you get a good quality one, you won't have to keep replacing it, you know? So I feel like upfront the cost might be a little higher than maybe not toxic, but like not as great pan. But if you pick one and you just stick to it and you know that this is like an investment that's going to last you forever, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I agree. That's like something that I wish I would have spent more money on. You know, as somebody who's not like, I wasn't very big into cooking. I'm more into cooking now, but like that I didn't grow up cooking or anything like that. So for me, I'm like, well, I just want the cheapest one. Like I'm never going to use it.
Yeah.
It's like, it really does make a difference. And I actually feel like your food tastes better and like cooks better when it's in a good quality pan too. So
Yeah.
It's like doing makeup. Like if you have a good brush and a good product, like the outcome is going to be different, you know?
Right. That's so true.
what is like, so obviously there's probably like a whole list of chemicals and like things to look out for, but what is one that like comes to mind that's like really commonly used like in a lot of things that people can like look at and like instantly recognize that this is something that should
I guess for makeup and skincare products, I would say fragrance is a big one. And I mean, sometimes the fragrances will say like something natural. It'll be like rose fragrance. So you feel like it's natural and from a flower, and it's really not. But fragrance is a tricky one because you can hide things in and call them fragrance. So a lot of people, or not people, companies will sneak things in that way. So fragrance is a big one. I feel like anything that you know upsets people with sensitive skin is kind of like a good measure. So like if it upsets someone with really sensitive skin, you probably don't want to use it either. And a big one for me, I would say, is like silicones. Some people don't react to it, but I feel like generally it's best to avoid if you can. And then parabens are a huge one. I feel like most people are more aware of that now. For me, something that's kind of like an on the fence ingredient is phenoxyethanol, and there are clean brands that use it and believe it's clean, and I feel like it's kind of just one of those things where you have to decide for yourself like how strict you're going to be with it. So I try to avoid it, but I'll use certain products, like make an exception for like a really good brow gel or something like that, but it is technically a synthetic preservative, and the research is kind of mixed on it. So I feel like you'll have people who consider it clean, some that don't, but generally I just try to avoid it. So I feel like at the end of the day, it really comes down to making your own decision, like doing your own research. If you feel comfortable with something, or it's like a product that you're not really going to be using too much, like maybe it's just a powder versus like a lipstick, which is very close to like your mouth and something you're going to eat. yeah, I feel like it's personal choice at the end of the day, but it's becoming so much easier because I feel like the resources are so much better now. Like you just have so much control and just like knowledge to make your own decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I know, that's not my dog. Definitely with like the fragrances, and I know like propylene glycol is a preservative that a lot of people use. I think Susan Yara talks a lot about how people with like immune problems or autoimmune diseases, people with hypersensitive skin, a lot of their like acne or things that they're trying to fix, like rosacea, is actually hypersensitivity to products. And like those things, like fragrances, whether it's natural or not, or whether they're hiding other harmful chemicals within the fragrance, can be very disturbing to the skin's barrier. And like it's funny because like I have psoriasis and I have to deal with that all the time, so I'm very like, I know when a product's gentle and when a product's not. I'm super big on like reading the labels, but there are people who can tolerate it and be totally fine. But yeah, it's really important for people who are sensitive to these things having to have resources like you to go to and see, okay, this is going to be safe for me to use, and like I will be able to make a happy, informed decision and keep my body safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like it's almost a blessing when your body reacts to it, because at least you know. It's kind of like dairy, when some people can eat like loads of cheese and like not feel a thing, but for me, I'm like, okay, at least I know what's going on in my body, because I know that it definitely messes me up, you know?
Yeah, totally. So I didn't realize that all of your recipes are gluten-free as well as vegan. Are you gluten-free by choice, or is it a sensitivity?
So I initially was avoiding gluten because there are a lot of studies that show that gluten can sometimes react negatively with those who have like autoimmune symptoms. So sometimes your body will misinterpret it and think that it's something foreign that's trying to kind of attack your body and your immune system, and then triggers inflammation. So that was a big thing for me. But I would still eat it occasionally. Like a vegan croissant comes along, I'm never going to say no to that, you know? But recently I found out that I have celiac disease too, actually. And it could have been something that came on later. I'm not really sure. But I'll still make exceptions every once in a while, just because I feel like if I'm at a restaurant and that's all they have, something that's like 100% vegan but not gluten-free, I just kind of have to deal with it. But yeah, it puts me out pretty badly. And I feel like with gluten-free recipes, if you're able to make something gluten-free, it's way easier to then make it with regular flour if you want to, versus like the other way around. So I just feel like it's an easy go-to way.
Yeah, no, I love it. I thought that I had celiac disease a long, long time ago before I was ever vegan. I ended up being super, super lactose intolerant, and so then I had like a period of time where I did eat gluten-free, and then like now I eat gluten-free a lot, mostly for like gut things, and like that's a whole other like situation, but like I've had gut issues and stuff, and gluten-free products are just like really easy to digest. So it's so interesting having done that before, and now how far gluten-free products have come. Like when I first went gluten-free, it was like gluten-free bread was not good, like at all. The bagels were like hard as a rock, like, and now
honest and like everything kind of like could be used as a doorstopper. It was like hard and like dusty.
And now they're so good. Like honestly, you can barely even taste a difference. Like my favorite pasta is jovial brown rice pasta.
Okay.
Literally, you would never know that it's brown rice pasta. It tastes just as good as the real thing. But I think it's so awesome that you do both, because I find a lot of people will say that they want to be vegan, but they're gluten-free, and that's going to limit them too much, and they feel like they can't do it. So what do you feel like, how would you respond to somebody who said that, first of all?
I think in the beginning, all of like the faux meats were definitely like seitan and like just full of gluten, you know, so it could definitely be difficult. But nowadays it's really easy to make like substitutions, or I feel like just go back to like the whole form of food. So using like a lettuce wrap, definitely not as fun as like a gluten-free bun, but like that is always an option, you know, and you can go the unprocessed way or like the more fun way and have like the gluten-free buckwheat bun or whatever. But yeah, there's so many options, I think. And it's really weird how people always lump them together. Like sometimes my aunt will be like, oh, you don't eat gluten because you're vegan, right? I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's just that I'm allergic to gluten, but I eat vegan, you know? So I think nowadays we're really lucky because products will come out, and I feel like half the time when they're vegan, you can automatically assume that they're going to be gluten-free friendly too, which is super nice, but definitely not the case when I first went vegan, at least.
Yeah, totally.
Find with vegan baking, and I'd love to hear some of your tips about vegan baking, but I found that with vegan baking, mixing the types of gluten-free flour that you're using is a really good way to go because, for example, coconut flour or almond flour are very, very dense just because they're just really, like almond flour is just basically almond meal, like really fine. And so there's a lot of fat, there's a lot of moisture in it. And so it can be really difficult to get a nice texture. But if you combine it with other types of gluten-free flour, you get like a completely different outcome. And so that was pretty life-changing for me. But I would love to know if you have any gluten-free baking tips because I think that a lot of people struggle with gluten-free baking.
Yeah, so my favorite tip, I guess, would be definitely to mix the flours. Sometimes it's cheaper if you invest in like a bag of each and like make your own blend at home. I know that that turns a lot of people off from gluten-free baking. So the one-to-one mix from Bob's Red Mill is also pretty good. One of my favorite flours, I would say, is chickpea though. Chickpea and quinoa, they're actually really fluffy. Like unlike almond and coconut, I feel like they are most similar to regular flour. Same with buckwheat flour. And I feel like making a vegan buttermilk is really helpful too, just to kind of get that air in there. But it is definitely tricky. Like I've had so many recipe fails where I'm like, this is just a brick, you know, or just really, really nasty. And that can be, I mean, that can suck because gluten-free flours tend to be a little bit more pricey, but I think it's all about just, you know, putting the time and effort in because it's like you said, like putting more time and effort and quality into something, you're going to end up with a better result. Otherwise, just maybe use like a one-to-one and don't invest in all the flours. Yeah, it's difficult because a lot of gluten-free things contain egg to fluff it up too.
Yep.
So I think it's just a matter of figuring out what works or finding a recipe that really works for you or a flour that you like. Or if you don't mind, like if texture is not a huge thing for you, maybe just be okay with something being a little bit more dense or not as fluffy and chewy. I had to do that a little bit.
Yeah, because it's wholesome. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love chickpea flour and savory things. So when I make like red lentil fritters or any kind of veggie burger, using chickpea flour is a really good way to make sure that you're adding protein. But it tastes really good. Like it just really works with the seasoning and kind of creating that like savory, like another layer of savory flavor. It's really good.
Yeah, I love it. It has like almost like a nutty flavor.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Inspires you in the kitchen, like when you come up with recipes? Are you just kind of sharing what you naturally like eat and what you love, or do you find that you're trying to go after something specific? What's your approach?
I try not to recreate classics just because I feel like the bar is set so high when people expect, like if you say, I don't know, like chicken nuggets, for example, I just feel like the bar is so high because people know what that tastes like. And it is good to make, especially if it's gluten-free and you're not using like a glutinous protein. So I feel like I kind of just think about like flavors and textures, what's in season, produce-wise. I think of it almost like a chop challenge. Like I pick one ingredient, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna focus on this, and I just want it to taste really, really good. And that's kind of like where I start. But a lot of the times I'll make things that I used to eat as a kid and try to find ways to veganize it, and that's always really fun. I feel like, yeah, the opportunity is like limitless to veganize things. And it's really fun, I think, when you make something that's a cultural dish for people to connect to that and be like, oh, I can eat that again, or feel like I'm having that nostalgic experience. So that's definitely been really fun to do, especially with my parents, because in the beginning, they really felt like I couldn't eat anything that was either Korean, Japanese, or Taiwanese, or like you can't have anything. I'm like, actually, there are really amazing veggies from, you know, Asia that you can't find in the US that taste really good. So yeah, I just kind of pick up inspiration from what's around, new veggies that I really want to incorporate, or sometimes it'll even be nutrition based where I'm like, I want this dish to be a little bit of protein, a little bit of greens, or I want to find a way to like sneak beans into this. And that's also a really fun way. But I know that not everyone's into like secret beans. So
I loved your one of your recent What I Eat in a Day is you put beans on avocado toast, and I was like mind blown. I've literally never thought of that. I love avocado toast, and I'm always trying to think of ways to like sneak beans in.
Yeah.
I'll put them in a bowl, but that's about like covered in a sauce. That's about the only way I like beans. But I have all these cans of beans, like the girls know. They're like, your bean collection is insane. I never know how to eat them. But like smashing white beans on toast and covering it in avocado, so delicious and so cheap.
I have a white bean guacamole recipe. I'll send it to you because it's like actually mixed together. So it's like, the reason I did it was because I love guacamole and I could just sit and eat like a salad bowl of guacamole if I wanted to, but like with chips. But like that's so many avocados and I just wouldn't feel very good if I ate like the quantity that I would like to. So what I did was I kind of mashed white beans into the guacamole just for bulk, and it ends up being really healthy, right? Because you're getting protein and iron and fiber and whatever, but like it feels like you're just eating more guacamole, which is what I wanted. So it's a really easy way to like get more guacamole.
Sometimes I feel like I'm a little kid. I have to like trick myself with the like my smoothies. I just like put all the spinach in, and I'm like, "Yay, good job, Hannah."
Yeah, so true.
I'd love to talk more about how you're incorporating more of your cultural dishes and like what things you're substituting, because like I love Asian food. Every part of Asia, South Asian, just everything. And a lot of the food basis in Asian cuisine is so much a part of vegan cuisine, like tofu and noodles and tamaris used to flavor so many faux meats. So I would love to hear about like different dishes you've made and like different challenges you've come up with in substituting, or maybe even happy accidents where things were already vegan.
Yeah, so I think that, like you said, it's actually really easy when you think about foods that people used to eat a long time ago. Nowadays, I feel like in Asian culture, especially like in East Asia, there's this want to like eat meat to kind of prove your status in terms of wealth. And
it's
so
exactly like that in India too.
Yeah, so it's become like more of like a just because I can, not really because it's part of the traditional cuisine. And I think, at least for me, like all of the, like I'm Japanese, Korean, and Taiwanese, and all of those cultures have this religious history where there's like some form of religion in which they don't really eat any meat. It's basically vegan. But it's just changed so much since then. And I think that really just focusing on veggies is an easy way to go. At least in East Asia, it's easy because there's not much dairy used actually. So you get a pass on that. The biggest thing to look out for, I feel like, is like fish sauce. And just like beef stock and stuff like that. So I found, and I think this is one of my favorite things, like with Japanese cooking, that seaweed makes a really awesome substitute because it's got that sea-like flavor, a little bit of fishiness, and also really, really nutritious. So I would say that's my favorite thing for making like soup broths. Mushrooms are also awesome. I really feel like it's all about flavor and getting like the savory back. So yeah, sauces for the most part, I feel like you can almost always make them vegan, and then that kind of is your dish. Like put it on whatever you want, whether it's like cauliflower or tofu or just veggies, and it pretty much tastes the same in my book anyway.
Yeah, I love that.
That's a great tip. Yeah, I went to Thailand. Was it a year ago? Yeah, a year ago, right? Over a year ago. And it's super vegan friendly over there, and the only thing that I ran into was the fish sauce because they put it in everything. And so one time I did get a dish and I tasted it and I instantly knew, I was like, there's fish sauce in here, like 100%. But the seaweed, wow, I would have never thought like to use that as a replacement. But what a healthy like alternative that is going to taste so similar.
Pretty crazy. And now it's easier because there are like vegan fish sauces and stuff like that. I usually can't because I feel like there's always a little bit of gluten with the soy sauce in them. But I honestly feel like it's really easy. Like you could make, for example, gochujang tofu. You could also make like chickpeas. You could make Korean barbecue anything with just like the flavors, you know? So it's actually really fun. Like even just like Korean barbecue broccoli would be really good.
Oh my God. Great.
So good.
Yeah, it's barbecue flavor profile of it. As long as that's spot on, like you can put it on anything and it'll remind you of that.
Yeah, Korean barbecue used to be my fiance and I's favorite thing in college. Like it's so funny when people are like, "Oh, you were like always kind of vegan." I'm like, "No, I was not." Like, I went to Korean barbecue and I chowed down, like not at all. But it's so like interesting to think back. It's like, no, it's not the meat that I liked. It's the sauces, and it's like the charred like grill.
The grill, yeah, the little burn.
Yeah, that's what you miss.
Yeah, it would be really cool if someone made like a Korean barbecue restaurant with like only faux meats, because I feel like also the culture around cooking it together with people is really fun. Like it's something to do, you know. I feel like that's very LA. I could see that being something.
No.
People love shabu shabu here. The sheer amount of shabu places is ridiculous.
So
We love
fun.
going. There's like a place we go that has vegan shabu shabu, and it's just like, I don't know, eating is already so social. And when you have like an activity, that is just the cherry on top of the experience.
Someone needs to open that Korean barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, let's put it out there. Somebody listening.
Let us be the taste testers.
Yeah. Ugh, your photos are so cute. I'm looking at your Instagram. They're just so bright and happy and pink and fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard because it's really not that bright in New York. Like everything's pretty dark. I feel like most people, the aesthetic, like they just go with it. They're like, okay, gray, dark, grungy, and I'm like, it's just not me. But I try to make it work. You know, when the sun's out, I'm like, okay, gotta take all the pictures while I can. So I'm very much, I rely on sunshine. Like that dictates my calendar for the most part.
Right.
Do you bulk shoot your content, or do you do it like spread out, just like as you feel inspired?
I'll try if I know that's going to be like a really good day, but I get this weird guilt when it's a super sunny day and I was like, oh, I wasn't going to shoot anything today. And I'm like, oh, I really should. It's just like the color good today. So I try to be a little bit more strategic and just be like, okay, this is an off limits day. I'm not taking any pictures. And then on another day, I'll have like my whole list. I'm going to do like 3 recipes. It's just really hard, I feel like, with food though, because you actually have to cook it. Things look dry and you can tell when they've been sitting out. So I try as much as I can to do bulk, and I'm working more on just like bucketing my days. Like this is going to be an editing day, this is going to be a shoot day, but it never really ends up working out that way. Like I find myself randomly editing something or taking like a quick photo, you know? So
Yeah, I know. I always love the idea of like planning things out and then like having set days for things, but then it's like if like the inspiration hits, like you just got to go for it.
Definitely. I feel like with especially lifestyle photos or pictures of me, like if I have to wear makeup, I'm gonna milk that day and do like everything, you know?
Yeah.
You're gonna change outfits and just be like, ooh, content for a month.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so interesting though, because your content is so beautiful and cohesive. I was just curious if like how much like was just spontaneous and how much is like planned.
Yeah, I feel like it's easy when you just own a lot of pink. So I don't know, like I get the question a lot and I'm like, honestly, if I think about it, it's just that like everything I have is pink. So it just kind of fits, you know? But when I travel, it's kind of like I have to be a little bit more thoughtful. Like, where am I going to find pink, you know?
Right.
You have like props in your purse.
Yeah.
You like bring a pink cup into a restaurant.
Exactly.
Oh my God, your ceramics collection is like, it's so good.
Thank you. I tried to put myself on a ban, but it's like, I always find an excuse. I'm like, I need this for work. This is a business expense.
I was just telling the guy I'm dating about that. I was like, he was like, why do you have a donut pan? I was like, I am a creator. I need a donut pan.
I'm like, I made donuts once, so I need it.
Yeah. I was like, I've never made donuts, but I have this pan, and I'm so happy I have it.
That's
You never
so
know when you need donuts.
You never
Right.
know when you need a good donut, you know? It
Right.
could be 1 a.m. and everything's closed and you're like, but I have a donut pan. So
Yeah. And I can have 6 now because the pan has 6 anyway. But Remy, I really like when you tag the ceramics in your photos. That's how I found some of my favorite businesses that make really beautiful.
I'm so
ceramics.
glad. Yeah,
That's
there are
so
so many,
helpful.
and it's like they almost can't even keep up with demand. And in the beginning, I didn't realize why things took so long. So I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I ordered this 3 weeks ago and it's not here. And I kind of had this like moment of like, what do you mean there's no Prime? Like I was really pissed off, and then I realized, oh my God, they're making it from scratch and it's to order sometimes. So it's been really fun. I'm on this mission to like make everything in my apartment a ceramic. So we've got like a ceramic matcha bowl. When I had a cat for a while, I was like, maybe I should get a ceramic food bowl for my cat, you know?
Is it
But,
cat adopted?
I fostered 2 cats just like in between, but they got adopted so quickly, which like is a good thing. But I was like,
Like, I
I
think
feel
I
that way
should
too.
order a bowl.
yeah, exactly.
Whenever I have a foster and it's like they get adopted within a week, I'm like, no. Like, I wanted more time. But it's like, obviously you're happy because they got their home.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
But speaking of purchases, I've definitely been doing a little bit of online shopping. I actually bought the air fryer that you posted about, NISHA.
Oh my gosh.
It's so aesthetic. It's
so cute, and it's also so affordable.
Yeah, it's really good. Like, I mean, like, I have a picture in my phone of me just like looking at it like it's my firstborn child, and I'm like, am I okay? But it seems like other people are enjoying it.
Nisha, that's exactly how I am about the Dutch oven. I was like in between filming, I was doing a story that I'm gonna put up later, and I watched it back, and my face is like, I'm like holding it like a kid at Christmas, and I was like, I'm not normal.
Someone wrote to me, they're like, now I bought the Instant Pot. I bought there are these measures, the cup measures I talk about all the time, and they're like, and now I bought your air fryer. Like, why do you love kitchen appliances so much? I was like, there's some people who don't like kitchen appliances.
You know, who are these people?
Like, that's like the zest of my life.
So I were friends, Nisha.
I'm so jealous
For Christmas when I was 10.
Every time I see that air fryer, I get so mad because then I have to go use mine and it's big and black and ugly and I hate it. And I'm like, ugh.
It doesn't read the room. It doesn't go with your aesthetic.
Read the room. We're cute here. You don't belong. Oh well.
Like, wait, what were we talking? Is this an interview? We're just like,
I got way off topic.
Everyone's gonna run and grab their favorite kitchen appliance.
Vegan Home Shopping Network.
Oh my gosh. No, I would love that.
I would love to know like how you spread the vegan love. I feel like you're a really good example of someone who just leads a beautiful, aesthetic, like wonderful, healthy life that's like super inspiring. But like from your perspective, how do you approach that?
First of all, thank you. That like means a lot, because I feel like sometimes I do get slack from vegans who are kind of like, you're obviously a health vegan, or you're vegan but you never talk about being vegan. I'm like, really? Because I feel like I hashtag every single thing I post as vegan, you know, like
your handle is Veggiekins.
Yeah, like it's literally my life's work is being a vegan food blogger, but okay.
Exactly. And I feel like non-vegans think that I talk about it a lot, and then vegans think that I don't talk about it enough. But I just, in the beginning, I was a little bit more, I guess, activist. And I felt like I had to be, because I was vegan, and I would go to like all of these, not protests, but we had like the voiceless demonstrations in Union Square in New York. And I always wanted to like be part of it, also because I didn't have any vegan friends yet. So I felt like that was where I was going to meet them. And it just like I don't know, it wasn't me. I don't think that I have the right personality to be able to take that back if I were to put that energy out there. Like when you challenge someone or you come at someone aggressively, they're going to challenge you back and ask you questions and fight you about it. And I was just like, that's not me. Like, I can't be confrontational. I would just never be comfortable, confronting someone like that. But for me, I think of food as activism and just sharing easy recipes, never being like, oh, it's so disgusting to eat meat, even though like maybe I think that inside, but I'd never be like, oh, this is like way better than any like cow pus. Like, that's just not how I would talk about food. And I feel like everybody can connect to wanting to be healthy and do something good for themselves. And then once you kind of, I guess, connect the dots yourself, because it has to come from you, that's when you can expect like the other things to kind of fall in line. So yeah, I just feel like leading by example is important, but I also love the idea that making a little step is more important than being like, I'm going to go 100% vegan, because for some people, whether it's, I don't know, just like lifestyle or living situation, it's not possible to do it 100%. And then I feel like it's not sustainable, because they're going to go, back to like, oh my God, I never want to be vegan again. So for me, it's always better to just do a little bit. And I feel like there are people that do that aggressive work, and it's needed, because for some people that's what, helps them go vegan or become interested in it, but that's not me. So I feel like I do my work, they do theirs, and there's something for everyone. We all just have to kind of be vegan in our own ways, but it's definitely not like I'm someone who would ever be like, oh, like I don't call myself vegan because I don't attach myself to the label. Like I'm definitely vegan. I just feel like based on what's worked for me, I feel like I'm effective towards a certain group of people, and everybody loves food. At the end of the day, it's like, as long as it tastes good, that's all that matters. So.
Right. I love that. We're all about embracing like little steps, and every effort to reducing harm towards animals is amazing. And like all of those efforts should be celebrated, no matter who they come from, no matter where that person is in their journey, no matter if they call themselves vegan or they don't. But when we start like telling people that they aren't vegan enough, or their activism isn't enough, or like, then we start making it this impossible thing for people, and it becomes more about our own ego than it does the animals. Like the bottom line is, you're not eating animals, you're leaving them off your plate. That's veganism.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like society is already demanding so much from us to be perfect, and like making everything so unsafe, and everyone thinks you have to be this pristine, perfect person to be vegan, when like that's just not sustainable. It's not nice to your brain. No one just wants to be shamed and like obligated into doing something. And I love how you just like live your life, and that is so much more inviting to me as a person than getting like yelled at.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's also a lot of diversity in veganism, like culturally, but also just junk food vegans. Like there's something for everybody. And like if it's someone who's into fashion, it's like maybe that can be your change. Like you start wearing a little bit more, I guess, ethical fashion and cruelty-free fashion. Like there's really something for everyone. And I think it's so important because different things appeal to different people.
Yeah, you don't want to lose like that part of your personality and just become this vegan, yourself in the vegan box. And I'd love to know how you became so interested in like non-toxic living and going vegan. Were you always really into health, or was that something you grew to love or influence?
So my mom has always been into it, but I never wanted to listen to her. It was like one of those things where like if your mom tells you it's not cool, So I was like, whatever, mom. Like I don't want to talk about your neem toothpaste right now.
The neem toothpaste.
But when I got older, I realized, and I think that honestly part of it was having my own health issues. I think it was important for me to have that disconnect and go through an eating disorder, because that was when I started to, I guess, focus on building a relationship with my body. I think even a lot of my friends now, they don't have as much connection with their body, because we are really conditioned to kind of ignore our body signals. Like when we're hungry, we're taught like, oh, don't snack, eat at this time, or you should not eat that much, eat this much and wait till dinner, things like that. Like there are so many things that we've just considered normal that have kind of trained us to ignore our body signals. So I feel like even now, and I'm still getting used to like listening to my body for real, but that whole process really helped me to understand like what foods really make me feel good. How does food taste? Like that's a big part of eating discovery. Oh my goodness. Eating
Love that.
recovery. Just like focusing on everything other than like macronutrients and calories, but it's more like, what does the food look like? How does it taste? Like, how does it make you feel? And that was kind of the beginning for me, where I realized, oh, dairy does not make me feel good. So from there on, I've become a lot more in tune with what works for my body. And I think that was really, really helpful. But had that not happened, I don't know if I would have been vegan or just conscious about, what I use and buy.
It's so interesting because like you mentioned dairy not making you feel good, and same but it's so funny when I first started realizing like that was what was causing a lot of my health issues, and I would like not eat it. Cheese is such a cultural thing. Like people really are attached to cheese. So I would go to like a restaurant with people, or I'd go to a wine night and they're like, just eat the cheese, just take a lactate, like you have to, like it's the best. And then it becomes more like, oh, well, everybody else in the world likes cheese, so I gotta love cheese too. Whereas like, I think if we all listened more to like, like what looks good to us, what tastes good, what makes us feel good, then we'd all be like a lot happier.
Yeah, that's so true. Lactate is so weird to me. Like the fact that they add something into milk so that you can drink it, I'm like, that's so weird. Like maybe just don't drink it.
I know. And I used to use it for years. I don't really think it works, because I would still have like some symptoms. They would just be a little less than what they would be if I didn't take it. But The things people do for their cheese.
I know you practice yoga, and I know like a lot of yoga is body awareness, and I think that's like, it's all just so interconnected, you know? And I know like yoga practices also talk about not eating meat, so it's just funny like how all these things are becoming really popular, and like we're just kind of going back to listening to your body and like listening to what feels right and moral and good.
Just
Sorry.
crazy that it was
Like, my door opened on its own.
your ghost is
Your ghost.
I think it has to do with the bathroom window being open in the next room, but like, oh my god, it scared the crap. I was like, who's in my apartment?
The ghost was like, I love yoga.
No, that could be a whole episode though, just like how it should have always been that way, that people eat what makes them feel good and what looks good to them. But we're so influenced by what the magazines were telling us to eat, what the celebrities were eating. Like, I just remember growing up reading magazines and being like, this is what Britney Spears eats in a day, and being like, oh, I have to eat that.
The amount of
I don't like grilled chicken breast, but like that's what everyone told me I had to eat, and so I would eat it. Like,
I was about to say grilled chicken breast and Greek yogurt. The amount of times I ate that, it was just like, I love it. And I like hated it. I did not like it. It's just because it was in like 17 magazine, and I was like, yes, put in my body.
That's so crazy. I'm curious about like cottage cheese. I've never had it, but I'm like, that does not look like it could taste good.
that's another one that like everyone told you should eat. Like when I lived in the sorority house in college, and they would just have like tubs and tubs of cottage cheese, and that's what all the girls would eat, being like, this is good for you. And I would always eat it and just be like, it's not good.
I still love it, as like weird as that is.
Ew, it's like
I still love it too.
I just got on that train. That's just another, see, all these things that I'm like.
I would have thought you liked it, Hannah, because it's like a saltier.
I liked the salty aspect of it. Like, I feel like I liked the taste of it, but the texture just always threw me off. Like the watery mixed with the chunks, I just like never got on board with that. Like, I'd rather eat a cheese stick.
I feel like I'm at that stage of my vegan journey where I've been vegan for long enough now that like some of the food starts to gross me out. Like now that I've seen eggs as part of like the ovary of a chicken, like I just can't unsee that. And like like even when you're talking about chicken breast, I was like, it took me a while to get like to here, but I'm here.
It's so funny because I feel like as vegan food has become more sophisticated too, like I can see a breakfast sandwich and be like, I want that, but I want the vegan version, but the vegan version looks just like it. Like the egg and sausage, like it just looks like a just egg with like a Beyond sausage to me, and I want it.
I know, it's crazy.
I forget we've talked about it before, where we forget that things aren't vegan, and we will see like chicken and be like, but like the vegan version.
Yeah, it like doesn't compute that you would like eat a chicken.
Yes, exactly. Like it's not food anymore to you, so you see it and you're like, wait, that looks really realistic.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much, Remy, for taking the time to chat with us today. It was so good to have you, and we love you. We know our viewers are going to love you as well, so make sure you guys go give her a follow. Check out her videos, check out her Instagram. You are going to die over how aesthetic and beautiful everything is. It will bring joy to your life. You're also going to want to buy everything pink. Like, I think
I've been influenced.
I've been hardcore influenced. Like, I keep adding pink stuff to my apartment. I'm like, who am I? So definitely go give her some love. Make sure you join our Facebook group. It's got a great community of people. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And we will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye.